there, it's Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today's card is going to be a box frame card, and this is the one here that I created in the first video. If you've not seen this video, then I explain how you create this card, and this is a simplified version of what we are going to create today. I will leave a link down in the description box to this video, and if I forget, then it will be probably the video that I put on my channel before this one, so you can always look up there. So I am going to start off by doing exactly the same thing. I am scoring at a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch on every single side. So I score a 1/4 and then score a 1/2 and then turn it clockwise, score a 1/4, score a 1/2, turn it clockwise again until all 4 sides are done. And this is going to create the box on the front of our card. Now you can see if I hold my hand here in the shadow that you are able to see all of those score lines, and all you need to do is take a sharp pair of scissors, cut in twice there, and then cut once on the outside, and then just a shallow cut there so that we leave the little tab to create our box. Now I have a 5 by 5 inch card base that I'm working with today, and this piece here is going to be 5.5 by 5.5 inches. You can definitely play around with where you want your score marks and things. This 1/4 inch one is going to create a 1/4 inch thickness for my frame. And this is probably one of those cards that is going to need to be hand delivered, or at least you'll need to have some really sturdy packaging if you are intending for this to go through the mail. I am going to add some Midnight Snack ink, which is just a dark blue ink with a finger dauber. This little finger dauber system here, which is stacking daubers in that round container, is from scrapbook.com, and I'm sorry it has been discontinued, which is so disappointing. It is a really good storage container for all of the little finger daubers, but I'm just using some mint tape here, which is just a low-tack tape, and I am going to color the sides of my boxes, again, just to create a little bit more interest. Now I use the Midnight Snack and Remember Me colors of ink on my first video as well, and I purposefully kept these the same, and just so that you could kind of see the stepped up version of the same card. So we are creating the same box frame, and I'm going to use the same die here, which has the cutting blades on the inside, and then it leaves a stitching pattern on the outside. I cannot even remember where I got this die from. It's just a die that floats around my desk, and honestly, it is just a favorite one. But remember that you can cut out any shape out of the center here. It can be circles, squares, diamonds, anything, ovals. Now I'm moving on. This is some BoBunny glitter paste. Again, I'm not sure if this one is available, but there are lots of glitter pastes on the market. You can even go about making your own if you want to, but I will leave links to everything that I can possibly find in the description box below. So if you're looking for a product that I've used in today's video, check down there first of all, and if it's not down there, then I probably can't find it or it has been discontinued, and I apologize for that. I am using a brick stencil here. This one is from the Crafter's Workshop, and I've just put a nice, not too thick, it's relatively thin layer here on a scrap piece of paper. This is going to be the backing. I could have done this on my card base, but I really just wanted to work on it separately so that I could get everything lined up nicely. Now here I just went through and found a whole bunch of dies from my stash. Some of these go together like these daisy ones, and then there's a couple of leaves that go with this. There are several different die sets here. These didn't all come in one die set, but have a look through your stash, and all you really need to make a very similar one of these is a whole lot of different types of flowers or any florals and some swirls or any kind of dies like that. You can honestly make them work out of anything. As I said, I'm going to be using the Remember Me and the Midnight Snack inks, and I'm just keeping this color palette the same because it's what I used on my first video as well. And here I'm going to kind of go through some of this, but I'm going to spare you a lot of it because it's really just inking up all of these white die cuts. And I'm going to kind of do the main swirls in the Remember Me color, which is the lighter blue, and then the Midnight Snack, I'm going to do the leaves for this one just to create a little bit of interest. So I did do a little bit of taping just so that I could just get the leaves there. Honestly, if you didn't feel like die cutting this all out of white cardstock, then you could use your coloured cardstock. You could use sprays to colour these. You could use anything. There are so many different options, watercolours or wax crayons or anything to colour these up any way that you feel comfortable doing colouring. I find inking with finger daubers a pretty fast way for me, and I enjoy it as well. So I have created some of the flowers and I've left some of them white because I'm going to use some VersaMark ink and I am going to emboss these. I really like the colour scheme of blues and gold, or blues and silver, and I feel like I've been leaning towards gold a lot recently. I seem to kind of reach for gold more than I do silver, so I decided to change it up today, and that's why I am going with a blue and a silver theme. So I am going to use some silver embossing powder, and I just chose a few of the little bits and pieces and a couple of the leaves and one of those twisty curly floral pieces, and that is what I am going to heat emboss. I'm going to dip them in all of the silver embossing powder and then use my heat gun to make sure it is well and truly all melted. But please remember that another way to skip this step would just be to cut these die cuts out of some mirror cardstock or some silver cardstock. There is always another way to do things, and honestly they all look very similar in the end, so you can change things in and out as you please. I'm going to use some liquid glue to glue these together. Inside these little glue bottles is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish. That's what I use in here. And I have a video on my channel. If you just search on YouTube, how to fill a glue bottle, it will be the first one that pops up. And there is a nice mess-free, stress-free way to fill these glue bottles. It's really easy. So if you're struggling, make sure you look up that. And then I'm just kind of crimping some of these flowers with my fingers and kind of bending them a little bit to give them a little bit more dimension. I honestly did speed through this kind of part of the video. I know that it's moving through things fast and it's not in very good detail when I am die cutting and choosing these flowers, inking them up and then putting them together. I just wanted the focus to be on the box frame card rather than creating all of those flowers, because I've done that lots and lots of times before on many videos. So now here is our box frame, and I'm going to put some double-sided tape around the very outside. This is the bit that's going to hold our box frame down onto our card base. And then I'm just putting a tiny little bit of double-sided adhesive on those little tabs, and that's what's going to fold around the corners and create our box. Now, if I've moved through this really quickly in this video, go and watch the first video that I did on box frames, and I moved through it much slower so that you can get a really easy idea of how to put this together. It is not tricky at all, and you do not need any special dies to create this. You just need to be able to score those lines, and we are away laughing. So now you can see kind of where the box is coming together, and then all I do, this little bit here, even where I have the double-sided tape, I peel back just a tiny little bit, and then I push those corners together. Often I put a little bone folder underneath it, just so, because it's tricky to get my finger in there, but I just pull it back just a little bit, and then you can see it just helps create that nice solid box shape before I put this down onto my card base. It is not necessary, but I just feel like it kind of gets a really good adhesion before I pop it down. So you can see my box frame is ready to go, and at this point it does look fairly plain, but I promise when we put everything all together, this is going to be a gorgeous card. Now I have the same stamp set that I used in the first one, and this is the one-liners stamp set. It is a favorite of mine at the moment, and I'm stamping this in some VersaFine Onyx black ink. I figured while I was at it and I have the stamp set out, I am going to stamp a few of these. I did have a little bit of fluff on the Y here of the word you, so I actually fixed that up, and you can see that one there stamped much better. So I stamped a couple of these, and then I have a spare one as well. I'm going to use some long bladed scissors to cut these out, but you can use your trimmer, which would work just as well. Sometimes I find using the scissors is much quicker for me, but whatever you are comfortable with. And now this is my favorite part, where it kind of is time to start putting all of our elements together. So here is the brick stencil that we used, and I'm going to use a very non-scientific way of measuring this. I am just going to take my scissors and do a light snip up a few of the sides, and then I will cut just on the inside of those snips so I can measure what will fit behind my box frame. and then that is just to show through. And I do like it to be kind of as big as the back of the box frame, because that way when people look in the card sideways or anything, they don't see a little bit of empty space in the corners if I made that brick background too small. So I wanted to make sure that it was basically the same size as the box frame as well. So just making sure that it is on straight, and then I'm going to add a little bit more liquid glue, and this will go down to our 5 by 5 inch card base. I'm going to make sure that it is all pushed down and adhered really, really well, so I get my little palette knife in there just to make sure that I can get in all of those corners. And here is the beginning of our box frame card. Now I'm going to bring in all of these other little bits and pieces, and honestly I don't end up using all of these. There are a lot of them here, so I'm going to double up on some of my foam tape, and this way the flowers will fit nice and flush with the side of the card. I did try a couple of different designs here. I wasn't sure how many of these flowers I thought I wanted to put on, but sometimes less is more, and so I'm going to just have 3 little flowers, and I'm just going to shift this one because I like them down in that bottom left hand corner, and then this all makes the card come together really quickly from here. So again, I'm using a couple of little bits of foam tape on the back of these. If you want to make sure these are nice and secure, you can also add in some liquid glue, and that way I know that the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium is really, really strong, and I know that I can rely on that, but the sticky double-sided tape can hold it down in the meantime whilst the glue dries. So I'm just popping these 3 little flowers in, and then it's really just a matter of playing around and kind of having fun creating a little sort of scene here. I'm going to crimp some of those flowers, fold them in half. Some of my fingers have got a little bit of blue ink on the end of them by this stage. Now I do have this gorgeous big swirly leafy part here, and I'm just going to cut this in 2 to make the most of it, and so that it can kind of come out in a couple of different places. I did think about adding liquid glue onto the back of this, and that would have worked perfectly fine, but seeing as I had my permanent adhesive tape runner here, I just thought I would put a little bit of that on the back as well. Now some of this is going to be hanging onto the border of the box frame, and that's where most of the adhesive is going to go. And then I'll do the same on the other side with the other little bit. I'll make sure there's no little bits of glue hanging off. I don't want any little bits of stringy bits distracting us from this gorgeous little creation. And then a couple of little silver leaves, or a little bit of silver foliage that I will just pop in and around the place. And again, here I'm going to use the liquid glue because I kind of just sit these down roughly flat. I'm going to be hand delivering this one, so I wasn't worried about adding dimension at all. I'm going to add a little bit coming back from the frame as well, just so that it's not, it's a bit more balanced. And then from this one here, I didn't end up using too much of it, but I did want just one of those curls, which I popped in under the leaves. I'm going to use these scrapbook.com foam strips, any little piece of foam, and this way it just sits up nice and even with the box frame as well and doesn't get lost, but it is nice and bold, and that way the sentiment doesn't get lost at all with all that is going on this box frame card. Just to finish this off, I am going to add a few little pearls here and there. Again, going with the blue theme, I will add some in the middle of the flowers, and then some onto some little bits of the swirls and things, and then I will add a couple around the outsides of the box frame. So this card is definitely stepped up a notch from the first one that we did, and I really prefer the second one here, but I do like the first one. It is very nice and simple, it's easy to create, and it is not too overwhelming at all. So it depends on your style and how much time you have that day to play or work away at. So yeah, just a couple of really different styles using these box frame cards, which I had a whole lot of fun putting these together, and I think they do look really gorgeous. Although they involve a lot of dimension, I think it's worth it, especially if you are going to hand deliver or you have a really nice safe way of delivering these through the mail. So this is the look at the final card. I love that blue around the edges as well. I think that finishes it off really nicely. These cards stand up perfectly. They're not too top heavy, or they don't fall over. which is really important to remember when card making because the recipient will often want to stand them up to show them off for a little while. So here are the 2 cards that we created. Again, they are very different from each other, but using a lot of the same products, the same color scheme, and I had a whole lot of fun creating both of them. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed these videos. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and leave me a comment down below if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them down there as well. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!